So Ezra's got all these friends with him, and he's got the blessing of the king. He's got a note, so that's good. He's got a sheet of paper here in Ezra chapter 8 from King Artaxerxes, and that's going to carry some weight with people who might want to harm him and his buddies along the way. But to the hardened criminal types, I just don't think they're going to care about the letter. They've already sort of crossed the moral Rubicon of marauding and raiding and stealing from people. I don't think they really care very much what the king says. And so Ezra reveals that they're not going to have an armed escort for their journey from Babylon to Jerusalem, which is, I probably should have looked this up, but it's a long, long ways, and it's going to take months and months, and it's hundreds and hundreds of miles that they're going to have to travel. He's just revealed to his party, hey, we're not going to have an armed escort. The king gave us a lot of money, but I told him that this was probably going to work out and that God is going to protect us on the trip, despite not having any actual prophetic word from God that is the case. I'm just looking big picture at this, says Ezra. Everything seems to be falling into place, and I believe that this is going to fall into place as well, and that God's just not going to let harm befall us. And they all pray about that, and they fast about that, and they're like, okay. And where we left off yesterday was in verse 23 of Esther 8 with this prayer and this fasting happening on the front end of this big dangerous trip. It says, and he answered our prayer. God answered our prayer. So let's find out what this prayer answering business is all about. So Ezra takes matters into his own hands. Here in Ezra 8:24, it looks like he starts dividing up these riches, this mountain of wealth that Artaxerxes has heaped upon him. Showcase, showdown, Price is Right style in chapter 7. And so it says, well, then I, that's Ezra, set apart 12 of the leading priests together with Sherebiah, that's a tough one, Hashabiah, and 10 of their brothers. And I weighed out to them the offering of silver and gold and the articles that the king, his advisors, his officials, and all Israel present there had donated for the house of God. I weighed out to them, and this is going to get a little bit crazy here, 650 talents of silver, 780,000 ounces. 780,000 ounces. Did I know that off the top of my head? Obviously not. No, I got notes here. I looked it up in advance this time so that I wouldn't waste as much of our time. 780,000 ounces of silver. So that's a lot. We're going to talk about how much that is in dollars here in just a minute. And then we got silver articles weighing 100 talents. I think that's part of that 780,000 ounces of gold total. And then we got 100 talents of gold, 20 bowls of gold valued at 1,000 derricks. Remember, each derrick is about a quarter of an ounce of gold. We figured that out the other day. And 2 fine articles of polished bronze as precious as gold. I wonder what that was. It's hard for me to imagine anything bronze. I mean, maybe it's like some kind of famous work of art by some famous artisan or sculptor or something. I don't know. Whatever the case, it was super, super valuable. And this is a mountain of money. So I brought a calculator, and we're going to real quick look up how much money. I'm waiting to do this until you're here. So we got 780,000 ounces of silver. You can move those for $25-$30 an ounce right now, but $25 is about where we're at in terms of the actual street value. Okay, with that in mind, we're at $19,500,000 in silver, if my calculator is operating properly. So that's a lot. And then we got 120,000 ounces of gold. I probably don't actually need my calculator for that because we're just going to multiply that by $2,000 an ounce. It's roughly where we've been for a while. That's $250 million of gold, basically, just a little bit less. And then I don't know what the art or the polished bronze stuff was worth, but a lot. So we're dragging around $333 million. And yesterday, I told you that my wife got pickpocketed on the train in Rome. It was a huge disappointment. I'll just tell you straight up, I'm getting you into my actual business here. They went straight to some it had gold in the name. They went to a gold shop or a jewelry shop or something and immediately started trying to charge thousands of dollars. And one of the charges worked out. It's been straightened out. It took a long time, but we got it straightened out. They went to an iPhone store and they tried to buy iPhones. They just went crazy. But if everything they tried to use our cards to buy had worked out, I think it would have been like $6,000, which is shocking money to me. Crazy amount of money that they were able. I mean, it's just bonkers that they were that close to stealing that much money from us that fast before we even understood what had happened totally. So that's $6,000. It's a lot of money in my world. But I'll tell you what's more money in my world is $1/3 billion. That I am just going to go out on a limb and say that I bet that if that guy who pickpocketed Camilla and then used the cards to try to buy things in Italy real fast that he could resell, I bet if he saw some tourists in the subway station in Rome and they had a whole bunch of like those red wagons behind them that you had as a kid, and there were just mountains of obvious bricks of gold ingot in there just stacked way up to the top, and it was worth about $1/3 billion, I bet he would have tried to steal that from that unguarded caravan of 5 family members pulling wagons of gold and silver behind them. I think if the phone was enough to get his attention, again, this might be crazy, but I think I can defend this. I bet that $1/3 billion would have been enough. I mean, most of the heist movies I've seen, the amount of money that they're trying to score is a lot less than $1/3 billion. You can fund a lot of top-notch hackers and safecrackers and stuff to be a part of your team, Chinese acrobats to weasel through the vents for $1/3 billion. And Ezra's about to just divide it up amongst a bunch of priests. I mean, these aren't warriors. They're just dudes who know things about the Bible and whatnot, and how to properly gut and sacrifice this kind of animal and that kind of animal. And they're going to go on a journey of several months overland on a largely unguarded highway where bandits know that people travel with resources, and they're just assuming that since God's hand has been on all of this, that it's probably going to work out. I don't feel great about the plan. If I were there, like I said yesterday, I think I would have bought in, because what choice do I have, I guess? But big picture, I don't find this advisable. I don't find this to be necessarily exemplary. I don't think this is the kind of thing that you're supposed to look at as a reader and say, oh, well, if you feel like God's hand is on something, then just take incredibly reckless chances at any point in history, at any time, regardless of circumstances, and it should go to plan. And if it didn't work out, you just must not have loved God enough. Or maybe you looked a little bit too long when that sexy lady in the bikini was on the movie that you took your family to. Shouldn't have looked at that so long. It's probably why you got robbed. I don't think it works like that. I don't think that's the equation at all. I don't think there's anything morally exemplary here or behaviorally exemplary. I think this is a weird situation in a unique time, in a very strange moment in the unfolding of the history of the redemptive plan. And I think Ezra was a little bit over a barrel. And also, all of that said, I do think, I mean, how else can I explain it? I do think God's provision and protection must have been upon these people. Maybe Ezra just knows something the rest of us don't know. Maybe he understood the uniqueness of the moment correctly. But I don't think what we're getting here is like some kind of prescriptive thing where it'd be a great idea to go out and be like, all right, today's sermon is on Ezra chapter 8, and we're going to do things just like Ezra did it, because this is clearly how everything ought to be all the time. I still just cannot read it that way. I think it's a real conundrum. And can you call this a miracle? I mean, there aren't really overt miracles in Ezra and Nehemiah, but this kind of feels like it. You just can't put that value, that much value, that degree of value in front of people who are looking for opportunities to steal things and have it not get stolen. There's just no way, based on what we know about human nature and what things are worth, that this should have worked out. But as the story unfolds, the quick version is it does work out. God answered their prayers. And so Ezra says in verse 28, you as well as all these articles are consecrated to the Lord. The silver and gold are a freewill offering to the Lord, the God of your fathers. Guard them carefully until you weigh them out in the chambers of the house of the Lord in Jerusalem before the leading priests and the Levites and the family heads of Israel. Then the priests and Levites received the silver of gold and sacred articles that had been weighed out to be taken to the house of our God in Jerusalem. And then they make the trip. So his strategy is, let's distribute this so that if somebody gets hit, we don't lose everything. The downside of this strategy is, well, human nature is still in play. I mean, you're giving crazy amounts of money these people will never have another opportunity to get their hands on. You're giving it to them and being like, hey, Jake, Tad, Fred, Larry, I trust that you are totally bought into the mission of what we're doing, more than you are bought into what this 15 million bucks I just slid into your pocket could get you if you just disappeared in the night. Let's weigh it back out together. Let's make a deal with each other. Every penny is going to be there when we get together and we weigh this all back out and we put it all back together in Jerusalem. Deal? Deal. Fist bump. That's his plan. And so is it, dare I say, equally miraculous that no one robbed them, but also no one embezzled? They make the trip. They weigh everything out and it's all there. It worked. They get there safely. So what can we divine from this? What are we supposed to take from that in terms of the story? Well, I'll tell you one thing. Remember a few days ago when I was talking about looking at all these great buildings that people of the past built and being like, these things took 150 years. People die before then. That means that there was generational buy-in to make this incredible building, this incredible cathedral, whatever it might be. It tells you a story about the people. It tells you a story about their unity and their shared vision whenever you see an accomplishment like that. Well, we've been wondering, do the Jews in the age of Ezra, in the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, do they have what it takes to have clarity of vision like this? Because they haven't had it in forever. They've failed at just about every turn with this kind of opportunity. Can they muster, for the first time in 500 years, the ability to do something amazing together? Look, it's easy to read chapter 8 as just kind of a boring little aside that could easily be summed up as, we were a little worried about things, but then we made the trip and everything was fine. But I think we're probably more ahead to read this as though we were on the trip. What would we do? What would we expect? Would we expect not to get robbed? Would we feel good about this plan? How would we feel when we got there and we engaged in this trust exercise with everybody else and we dumped out the 15 million bucks that we were carrying, having not touched a penny of it, and found out that everybody else did the same thing, including the people on the trip with us who we thought were jerks and never really liked that much. They also bought in. Dang. No, I think that chapter 8 tells a story, if we're willing to read between the lines a little bit and put ourselves in their shoes, of something brewing here, something better, something that feels like a different vibe and a different mindset than what we've gotten through so much of the tragedy so far that has been the Old Testament. And even though it's across the ages and a lot of time has passed, hey, Ezra and everybody who went on this trip, yeah, high five. That was amazing. You are amazing. Making the trip this way is an incredible accomplishment. And now you have my attention and I cannot wait to see what you accomplish next. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.